Hi, and welcome to the Journalism Salute. I'm Mark Simon. In each episode, we'll talk to or about an interesting person or organization related to journalism. The intent is to show that journalists are not the enemy of the people. Thank you for listening. On today's episode, we're joined by Tim Whitaker. This is a little something different. Tim has been a teacher and a journalist and is the executive director of Mighty Writers. That group is a Philadelphia-based nonprofit that teaches 3,500 kids per year to think clearly and write with clarity. It works out of Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. Some of Tim's journalism career highlights include 14 years as editor of Philadelphia Weekly magazine and a stint as head writer at NBC Radio. He also produced an audio documentary about the history of soul music in Philadelphia, and he co-wrote a biography of former baseball star Dick Allen. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about both your time as a journalist and a lot about Mighty Writers, but I want to start on the journalism front. What's your writing and journalism origin story?
Well, I was sort of a bumpy student, to put it mildly. In high school, I sort of bumped along and managed to stay in high school, but it was not an upbeat experience. And it was all because I think that I just couldn't find what it was I was interested in. So I got through high school and then, went to college. I was sent to like this little college in Alabama, which was filled with what were then called juvenile delinquents and a lot of rednecks. I mean, it was really a bizarre experience. But I learned a lot being in Alabama, more than I learned being in other places. But I finally started getting my act together, transferred to Villanova, and then stayed there. But it really wasn't until a couple of years after college where I said I got to give writing a shot. Couldn't get a job. The first job I got was selling advertising. Wasn't very good at that, but I got to know the editor, began to pitch him some stories, and pretty soon I was off and running. Not making a lot of money, but I was off and running at least.
Was there anything in your upbringing, and I know you come from a large family, that lent itself to telling stories?
I'm not sure. I think my mother was a really good writer and liked to tell stories. I think I was sort of fascinated in Bethlehem growing up at a young age of how the city was like sort of split into two, like the north side and the south side, and I was always exploring all that when I was in high school and all that, and wanting to write about it, thinking like these there's such a great story here. So, and there was an editor. I'm getting off track here a little bit, but there was an editor at a newspaper, the Bethlehem Globe Times, is going back. His name was John Strohmeyer, and he won a Pulitzer Prize by writing about the Bethlehem, going up against Bethlehem Steel and a lot of their practices, which took major balls to do that in Bethlehem. And so I went and visited him a couple of times just to get advice and hear from him. So it was just I don't know if this is very linear, but that's really what the early beginnings of my writing career.
We could probably spend a considerable amount of time on all the different jobs that you've had, but
Yeah, a bunch of them.
I'm gonna try to limit it a little bit. Could we
Okay.
take your most memorable jobs and list the biggest thing that you took away from each one? And I'm talking about, I guess, Philadelphia Weekly and NBC
Yeah.
Radio and writing the book and producing the audio documentary.
Yeah. Well, being with Dick Allen was the experience of my life. He was a very mercurial, very smart, and very opinionated, and very warm. Just a very unusual mix. I'd been around baseball players a fair amount, doing quick stories and clubhouses and stuff like that, but I'd never ran into a guy like this. He was just totally out of the box, completely. And so that was about a year and a half of sort of running around the country with him and spending time in his hometown, and he was living in LA at the time, so I went out there and spent time with him. So that was like an experience that sort of will last the rest of my life. All the other jobs, the soul music, I was a big soul music fan, so it was great to do that. I really liked that. Philadelphia was a big soul music town, so going back into that world was really exciting. And then the Philadelphia Weekly was a great job. Everybody was at its height, And most of the time I was there, it was doing really well. It was like 150 pages, 200 pages. The staff was half my age. They were like ambitious, enthusiastic, and we were doing great stories and making money. So that was, pretty high times. But when that began to come to an end, it was interesting because the dailies had started fading before us, and we thought, okay, we're free. We have a young audience because we're an alternative newspaper, so we're younger than the dailies. Our readership was younger. I thought maybe this won't affect us. Maybe we'll be able to. Maybe we're bulletproof here. So we went on our merry way, and then Craigslist came along, and Craigslist just sort of knocked out a big percentage of our advertising, one big swoop, and then it just then it was sort of downhill, and like I went from having meetings with the publisher where I was talking about who I was going to hire, what town I was going to hire, to meetings with the publisher where he's talking about who I have to lay off. So I just thought, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. So that's when I started thinking about Mighty Writers as an alternative lifestyle or position.
I wanna get to that in one sec, but I do want to
Yeah.
ask you about your writing. And I was reading some of your columns are online. I read one from July 2010 that I felt was very like predictive for 2023, called "How many clicks will this post get?" In which you even went after your own employer for quick clickbait. So two
Yeah.
questions off that. Like, how would you I in reading your pieces, I thought that there was like a touch of Mike Royko to them a little bit.
Yep.
And I was just curious if you could describe your writing style. And yeah, I think that would be the question.
Well, I don't know if I could describe it very well. I sort of, I like to get to things pretty quickly, so I don't do a lot of dancing up front, and I have a lot of strong feelings about a lot of issues. So it's it's kind of made. Writing is sort of made for my personality because I can write it and then sort of move on. Um, so I like writing 800,000 words. I can write longer. I've written much longer, but that's my sweet spot.
How do you feel about the state of journalism in 2023?
It's pretty bumpy to put it mildly. I'm interested in uh, all the sort of newsletter kind of startups like Politico and Axios and was it Punk? I think is one of them. I sort of see those startups. Some of them aren't startups anymore. That's sort of something that might stick, might become like something that will have a lifespan. In terms of the dailies, it's just hard to see. It's hard to see daylight. I think the New York Times, of course, stays strong, and the Washington Post, I guess. But when you get to like the big metro papers in big cities like the Inquirer in Philadelphia or those papers, you see that they've slipped. That the copy editing is bumpy. The uh, the sections are smaller. There's still good talent. There's still a lot of good journalists, but not as many. And space is at a premium. There's not the time to do those big takeouts that the Inquirer, for example, was known for. Pulitzer Prize winning, sprawling stories. You don't see much of that.
How did being a journalist change how you view the world?
I think it helped me view the world more positively, actually, because I like journalists. I like the way they think. Being around them I mean, they can be cynical, and they often are cynical and sort of negative speaking, but in reality, they're actually positive. They're in a business, an industry that you have to really. It's a tussle. So they believe in stuff, and so I like being around them. I like the business of it. It's just a hard business right now, harder than it should be.
You mentioned having the thoughts to change to Mighty Writers. I read also that you said that Mighty Writers happened because you wanted to reinvent yourself. So what's the Mighty Writers origin story?
Well, when I got out of college, I taught school in North Philadelphia, a pretty challenged community in North Philadelphia for a couple of years. And I was terrible. I mean, I was really like, had no control of the classroom. They were like running wild all over me. But um, but I liked it. I liked it. I saw the spirit of the kids. Being from a big family, I'm the oldest of seven, so I always had a lot of younger kids around me, and I like kids. And so I thought, well, if I could combine writing with kids, that might be the sweet spot for me. So that's what I did. I started like figuring out how to do that, and got a couple of names of nonprofit potential names, and started showing them to everybody, and started figuring out how to raise money. All that stuff had its big ups and downs for a year there.
And did 826 Valencia also play a big role?
I went out to see 826 and Eggers and spent some time there. Definitely was a big part of constructing what we did. It's different in a lot of ways, but it's the same in a lot of ways. I think they're more. I don't want to sound negative here. I want to sound positive because I believe it. But they're more like in communities that have kids that are in better economic places than the kids at Mighty Writers for the most part. I mean, we really go into like the toughest neighborhoods and that's what we're good at. We know how to do that. We know how to motivate these kids and that's that to me that's the sweet spot.
How do you describe Mighty Writers to someone who's not familiar with what it is?
We have this mantra we say over and over again. Like I must have said it like 100,000 times by now, which is to get kids to think clearly and write with clarity. And if that's what we try to succeed at, we know these kids, most of them, are not going to become writers. I wouldn't even try to get them to be writers. There's so many other possibilities for them to do well as opposed to like jumping into journalism. I'm sure we're going to get some, but if they can think clearly, if they learn to like before you write, to stop, think what you want to say, get a real like a sense of where you're going, even an email or applying for a job or basic stuff. I mean, you must see this all the time. I see it all the time. It was like, you know, grown-ups that send me emails and I have to read them 3 times to like get to what it's really trying to say. And if you can write with clarity, you're gonna have a step up. I mean, we do a lot of other things to get there, but that's the underlying message.
There were 6 programs I saw listed on your website: Mighty Toddlers, after school, writing workshops, mindfulness, writing mentors, college and career programs. There are other things:
Yeah,
illustrator programs, karate, writing a movie, all sorts of really cool stuff.
yeah.
What are some of the ways in which in which the people that are working with the kids actually teach the kids to write?
Well, there's each of our centers has an after school program. We call it the Academy, and that's the heart of our program. That runs from 3 to 6 o'clock. So over the course of a year, including summers, the kids learn every genre of writing and what it means and how to do it, and they take a shot at it. And so that's like the heart of it. And around all that, we have all these other things that sometimes they're on weekends, sometimes they're at night, sometimes sometimes they're built into the academy on occasion. But that the after school program is really what we're really good at. We know how to like get the kids in, get their homework done, get them fed, and then have writing time.
I saw you were referring to it at one point as the anti-school school.
Yeah, it feels like that to me because it feels more like a clubhouse. So, the art on the walls is all combination of like Spider-Man and Maya Angelou. So it's like superheroes of all types. And, the kids tell us if they don't like a piece of art for some reason, we take it down and find something they do like. So they really feel ownership of the spaces, which is a big help.
What do you get the kids to write about?
Just about everything really. We take them on trips, field trips, and they write about that. COVID changed a lot of that in terms of writing. We now find that the kids have a whole lot to say about themselves, about their families, about the experience of COVID, what they learned from it, all of that. There's a lot of like getting that out of their system right now. So that's good. That makes it feels like it's like medicine,
What was it like before?
Before I think it was more tied to the work they had to do in school, right? So a lot of it was, you know, we're doing this project at school. I need some help getting through it with the writing part of it, that kind of thing. But COVID changed all that. It's starting to come back now. I was talking to the staff recently about, it's time that we start to like lock in to writing. And we did a lot of mindfulness during COVID. Um, we started distributing food to the communities. We still do that. So it became like a sort of mixed bag of stuff. And it really worked to our advantage through that period in terms of fundraising, in terms of the communities embracing us, just all the way around. It was really good. But now we want to get back to like, you're going to be a good writer. You might not make a living at it, but you're going to be proud of it and, march forward.
What do you do in your role currently?
That's a really good question. Some days it feels like I'm an air traffic controller because it's we have all these locations and I can't get to all of them in one day. I can't even get to them all 1 week. So there's a lot of check-ins. There's a lot of, here comes North Philly, here comes Newark, New Jersey, and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. What's the hardest part about what your group does?
I think the hardest part, that's a good question. The hardest part is probably keeping spirits high with the staff, because it's tough. It's tough work. We're in communities that are tough. The environment can be challenging. So yeah, I think that's probably, it's something we focus on a lot.
Well, where do you get your writing instructors from?
It's a mixed bag of writers, people that are former journalists and types like that, and teachers that have taught writing and they're sort of burned out of the school district, and that's a lot of them now. So, and we try to get people that wherever we can that are from the community we're serving. So we have two very large Mexican centers, so it's Mexican run completely. So we don't try to like put people in the cultures they're not familiar with.
And given all that you have taught to the students, I'm curious about reciprocation. What have the kids taught you?
I think they've taught me resilience and humor. I mean, these kids, well, all of them really, but the kids in Philadelphia, they just have this really like edge when it comes to comedy. They're very quick. A lot of it is because they live in neighborhoods where they see a lot of crazy stuff on the playground, in their schools, and everything becomes like shtick for them, So they can mimic people really well, and they're just fun to be around.
You mentioned the food delivery. There is this added component that your group took up during the pandemic that I did want to bring up. You do food, book, diaper, and period product distribution. How extensive is that?
It's huge. It's pretty much half of what we do. We went into it when COVID came. We shut down all our centers like everybody, and then we realized at one of the Mexican centers in the city, we're in big trouble right away because most of the parents worked in the kitchens of restaurants. The restaurants all closed. Nobody was documented, so there was no government help. So we began giving out lunches at our front doors to the kids. They walk by and give lunches for their parents and all. And we quickly saw that was like nowhere near enough. So we began forming alliances with Phil Abundance is a big one in Philadelphia, and said like, we have all these centers like all over the city. We can distribute to all these communities if you can help us get the food. And they did. And then we went to foundations, and I didn't think this was going to work. I was like pretty cynical about this, but because in nonprofits, there's a lot of talk about mission creep and getting away from your core mission and all that. And we were jumping out of our core mission in a big way. So I went to the foundations and said, this is what we want to do. We need vans, we need, can you help us? And they did, and they did it quickly. They did away with the usual, tons of paperwork and months of like study and all that stuff. And they just said, here you go. So we were able to I think we have 5 vans now that are moving all around the city. And, the lines are long, they're getting longer. So, it's become a very big part of what we do.
And I imagine that that was never a thought when you were first starting something like this, right?
Never for a second
Wow.
did I think that. Yeah.
What have you heard from people who finish the program and go out into the world?
It's interesting. I just had lunch with a young woman who is, I think she's maybe 23, 24. And, I knew her pretty well. And she wants to be a writer. I couldn't believe it. She said, and she wants to write novels. I was like, oh man, you picked a tough way to go. But she's deadly serious about it. She called me up and asked if I would help mentor her. And she told me what her outline looks like. She didn't send it to me yet. It's supposed to happen this week. We'll see. So that was really exciting and unusual. I think most of the kids that we work with, they come from backgrounds where they want to launch something or start something like an apparel line. They're very entrepreneurial. So t-shirts or sneakers or something like that is more common than wanting to write a novel. So we see the gamut of it.
Sure, but I would imagine that the writing skills that they learn come in handy when they're trying to write business
Yeah,
proposals and
yeah.
plans and things of that sort. And I was going through your annual report just came in the mail,
Oh, good.
and it referenced, I suppose, what I would say is a strong feeling of positivity among the people that are in the program and their willingness to continue within the program.
Yes, I think that's probably true. I mean, I think we make everything fun, and we're very fair and kind, and we're close to the families, so we don't just know the kids, but we know who's, and so I think there's a lot of confidence in what we're doing and how we do it.
You have a fairly large staff. Was there anyone that you wanted to shout out?
There's a number of them. We have a woman, Rachel Loper, has been with us since the very beginning, and she's a very buttoned down, on top of the curriculum and on top of all the centers and all of that. As a woman, Liz Spickle, that I worked with at the Philadelphia Weekly. She's a columnist there. She wrote about mental health for years, and so she's on the staff. Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble by not mentioning everybody.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna say there's on your website there's like 40 people. Every
yeah,
person I'm like, whoa, 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 these people are
yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
So it's
So
it's do you have how many volunteers do you have?
we have a lot of them. What that number is, I don't know. I know that we have a lot of mentors, more mentors than, well, mentors are volunteers, but more in a mentor capacity than we have like at the centers. All we need is a few volunteers at the centers, but the mentorships that exploded during COVID because it could be done over Zoom, right? So people that were home and bored and wanted to give back, it was a lot easier than getting in their car and you know
What are the
going.
goals for the program for 2023?
We keep wanting to expand. So, Asbury Park is our next spot. And, I've been spending a lot of time there. So we're looking at that. We're working our way to New York. That's really what we're trying to do. And we want to be in really good shape because we know when we get to New York, you better be buttoned down. So, we looked into New York. We looked into Harlem. We looked at a couple places in Harlem. There's a school in the Bronx, the Earl Monroe Basketball School. You know about it?
I do,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm really interested in that, of course. Earl Monroe's from Philadelphia. I'm old enough to remember Earl the Pearl, not
Sure.
Jesus. So
That's funny that you said that because as you were starting to talk about it, that was the school that popped into my head as where you might be headed. But that's cool.
yeah, yeah.
That
The cool thing they do is they recruit staff people with shoot arounds. So then they announce a shoot around, and then anybody that wants to apply has to come shoot around. Then they talk to them on the bleachers. They do it with kids too. That's how they get kids. I thought that was ingenious.
Wow.
Uh,
No, that's great. How can someone get involved with your program?
Probably through the website is the easiest way. I mean, there's ways to volunteer, there's ways to donate, there's ways to reach me. Everybody's accessible, so that's probably the easiest way.
Gotcha. What advice, as we wrap up here, what advice would you have for someone who wants to reinvent themselves?
Yeah. I don't know if I have
Well,
an easy answer.
when you were going through it, what were some of the things that you were going through?
Fear. That's one of them. You have to have like a blueprint that you're very clear about, and you don't want to deviate from it too much. You have to do a little bit, I guess, but I think it's like the same thing we teach the kids is clarity. Have clarity about what you're trying to do. And we were pretty clear that we wanted to teach kids in tough communities how to write, and that's really what we stuck with. So I think the harder question is, what do I tell kids that want to be writers? And I tell them the story about Ashley Parker. Ashley Parker, who writes for the Washington Post now, she's on TV a lot, and she was the New York Times before that. But when I was at the Philadelphia Weekly, Ashley Parker was a senior in college, and she came in to see me, and she said, "I want to write a cover story." And I said, "Ashley, people that write cover stories have been writing for years. People out in that newsroom out there are like, 8 and 10 years older than you. And how about you start with something like small?" No, 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 no. I don't want to be paid for it. Just give me a shot. Give me a shot. I said, "No, I can't do that. I can't do it." Came back the next day, same thing, right? So this woman was on fire. I mean, she was so sure that she wanted to be a journalist. There was like no stopping her. So I gave her the assignment. She said, "When's my deadline?" I said, "Well, typically like 3 weeks or a month." She said, "I'll do it in two weeks." Sure enough, she did it in 2 weeks. It was about a scandal about medallions and taxi cabs and I can't quite remember all the details, but that was it. And it was good. It was good. And we published it. And, from there, she went and was just a assistant to Maureen Dowd for a while. Then she was at the Times, and then she covered Trump. Now she's the Washington Post. So, you know, it's a good story to tell people, because I think if you want to get into journalism, you don't have to be quite that extreme. We have to be pretty focused, because it's hard. It's very hard right now.
You basically have to be aggressive, and you have to come through when you get the chance. Certainly.
Exactly right.
So we call the show the Journalism Salute. We salute you and your organization for your great work, and we ask that you do likewise. Is there a journalist or journalism organization or any writing-oriented organization that you would like to salute for their good work? You can pick more than one if you wish.
Okay, let me think about that a second here. There's online publication called The Citizen, which is run by this guy Larry Platt, who's a print journalist for a long time, and they do really good work. And I'm trying to think of any others. A couple of online things like that. The Inquirer. I get frustrated with it sometimes, but they do a lot of good reporting in there, and WHYY radio does good reporting, I think. Yeah, so there's good stuff. The overall picture can be kind of bleak, but within that, there's a lot of good work being done.
There are definitely positives, including your organization. Tim Whitaker of Mighty Writers, Executive Director, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
At Mighty Writers, they teach kids to think clearly and write with clarity. All of their programs are free to the communities they serve in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Washington Heights, New York. For more information on Mighty Writers, go to mightywriters.org. Thank you for listening to the Journalism Salute. Please let us know what you think of the show. You can find us on Twitter @JournalismPod, and you can email us at journalismsalute@gmail.com.